These policies go by lots of different names, and there's no one right way to call them, but an honor vacation or an unlimited or discretionary vacation or time off policy, the gist of it is that it is a new way to think about and to construct a time off policy for employees in the workplace. It involves doing away with the old traditional model of having employees accrue hours or days of time off for them to bank for use on vacation or when they get sick or they get married, etc. Doing away with tracking, doing away with having employers accrue those hours and days and to manage and account for them, and having a more discretionary, loose, if you will, practice of not tracking anything and having employees take time off when they want, when it makes sense to do so, on full day or partial day bases, so long as they get their job done. 2 years ago, I would have called it an idea. Today, I would definitely call it a trend.
So I think with my startup clients, it's have a policy, have a written policy. Because oftentimes I'll be a point of contact for a startup and they're just starting to look at their employment issues. And they'll talk to me and it'll come out through some other issue that they have an honor vacation policy. And they don't even frankly know perhaps what it's called. They'll just say, oh, well, we have a policy or a practice where people just kind of take time off as they need and that's just kind of how it goes. And then that raises a flag in my head of, okay, that basically means you have an honor policy. So my first issue is let's work together and get a written policy in place so people know that there's a certain amount of time they should be taking off and getting their work done as well. So that's really the main issue. For each company to really look at its company culture and decide whether or not an honor vacation policy is the way that the company wants to go. I mean, it's definitely a trend, whether it's a startup company, which most of my clients are, or it's a more mature company, but it certainly can have its downfalls and its issues. It's a great retention tool and a great recruiting tool, but there are a few problems like sick leave and leaves of absence that can cause issues with the company. So it's really just assessing whether or not that kind of policy makes sense for the company culture and whether the managers at the company are going to really enforce the policy the way it's intended, they're going to apply it evenly, and that employees are going to be able to take advantage of it in the way it was intended. The first would probably be, how do you deal with things such as sick leave and leaves of absence? If you have an unlimited policy for PTO, for example, saying you can take off as many days as you want for sick or vacation, then how do you limit if someone decides they're going to take a 30-day leave of absence for a medical reason? Do you have to pay for those 30 days? And that's something that you really handle in the policy. 2 is drafting the policy, which I just mentioned. There's also an abuse component that can happen. For example, if you have employees who decide to take 3, 4, 5 weeks at a time, and maybe they're not getting their job done, then that's really not benefiting the company. Finally, I think really it's inconsistent application of when you allow folks to take vacation, because we may call it an unlimited vacation policy, but the reality is you still have to get approval from your manager. And if manager A is saying, yeah, Sally, take 2 or 3 weeks at a time, but manager B is saying you can only take 1 week at a time, it could be possibly interpreted as discrimination.
If you are an established company that has had an established traditional policy, what to do with the existing balances that are on the books. You can't just wash them out. And especially, as I said, under California law, and most companies have a policy at least that provides that when you leave the company, whether by resignation or by termination, you'll get paid out your accrued balances. Those are vested accrued wages, at least under California law, and so you have to deal with them. You can't just throw them away. You've got to either write a check to the employees at that moment for the accrued vacation, which is a difficult thing for many companies to do, or you carry it on your books until they leave. Or what many companies are doing is sort of a hybrid approach of giving employees a runway of time, anywhere between 6 and 12 months or so, to draw down on those balances, to get them as close to zero as possible, at which time the sort of honor system or discretionary policy will go into place.